In September 1987, a 60-year-old botanist named Hugh Wilson stood on 109 hectares of ruined farmland on New Zealand's Banks Peninsula and told his new neighbors he was not going to touch the gorse. He would not spray it. He would not bulldoze it. He would not burn it. He would not cut it. He would let every thorny yellow acre of it grow. The letter arrived in the Akaroa mail 2 weeks later. It called him a fool and a dreamer. It said, "Heaven help us from people like him." It said the land would be ruined within a decade, and the gorse would spread across the whole peninsula and bankrupt every farm from Christchurch to the sea. 39 years later, the land Hugh Wilson refused to touch is 1,700 hectares of native forest, 47 waterfalls in permanent flow, 35 species of native birds, and one of the most important restoration case studies in the Southern Hemisphere. And the gorse is almost gone. It killed itself. This is the story of one of the strangest ecological experiments in New Zealand's history, and why the botanist who ran it never planted a single tree. The land Hugh Wilson walked into in 1987 was not just tired, it was actively fighting itself. The previous farmer had done everything the government told him to do. Gorse had been classed as a noxious weed by the New Zealand Parliament since 1900, and the standard advice for the previous 87 years had been simple. Kill it. Kill it with sprays, kill it with fire, kill it with heavy machinery, and if none of that worked, kill it with more of the same next season. The farmer had sprayed the paddocks, he had bulldozed hillsides, he had slashed it back by hand, he had burned fire breaks along the ridges. Nothing worked. Every method the farmer used made the gorse come back thicker, faster, and over a wider area until 53% of the property was closed. Canopy gorse and the pasture underneath had collapsed. By the time Maurice White walked onto that land, the farm had defeated its owner. White was a Christchurch accountant who had been quietly setting aside money since 1977 to buy conservation land for native birds. He had no botanical training. What he had was a trust fund and a botanist he could hire. Hugh Wilson had spent 7 years surveying the plants of Aoraki/Mount Cook, 5 years cataloging Stewart Island, and had just finished a full botanical survey of Banks Peninsula for the Department of Conservation. He knew what the land had been before European arrival. This coastline had been closed native forest from summit to sea. By 1987, less than 1% of that old-growth forest was left anywhere on the peninsula. 99% of what had lived there was gone. But Wilson's survey had found something the farmers had missed. Under the gorse, in the shade the thorns cast on the ground, native seedlings were coming up. Not planted, not tended, just growing. Kanuka, maho, fuchsia, wineberry, lemonwood, five-finger. Species that could not survive in open pasture were quietly establishing themselves inside a wall of introduced weeds. He needed to know why. The reason turned out to be a piece of biology the farmers had never been asked to think about. Gorse is a legume. Like clover or beans, it fixes nitrogen from the air and pumps it into the soil through its roots. On land stripped bare by a century of grazing, gorse is the first thing that will fertilize the ground back to a state where anything else can grow. It is also, mechanically speaking, a fortress. A mature gorse thicket is 3 meters tall, chest deep in thorns, and impassable to sheep, cattle, deer, and goats. And that fortress casts shade. Hugh Wilson published the observation in the New Zealand Journal of Botany in 1994. Gorse grows fast for its first few years, then hits a wall. After roughly 10 years, its own stems begin to collapse under their weight. The canopy opens and light comes down onto ground. The gorse has already fertilized and protected. Gorse itself cannot regenerate in shade. It needs full sun. But shade-tolerant native seedlings brought in by birds and wind can. They come up through the collapsing gorse, overtop it, block the sun from reaching the parent plant, and the gorse dies. It composts itself into the forest floor. The plant the farmers had spent 9 decades trying to poison was, in the right conditions, the fastest known route back to native forest on Banks Peninsula. Wilson wrote it down. He handed the letter to the Akaroa mail, and the neighbors went to war. The letter that called him a fool and a dreamer was one of many. Local government regulations required Wilson to keep clearing gorse along the property boundaries, so he did a strip along the fence. No more. Every year the council checked. Every year the neighbors watched the interior of the property go yellow. One neighbor, a farmer whose family had worked the next valley for 4 generations, later told a documentary crew that as a child in the 1990s, he had walked into Hinawai on an open day and could see nothing but bright yellow to the horizon. Every farmer on the peninsula was convinced that the seeds from Hinawai would blow onto their land and destroy them. Then, in 1988, Banks Peninsula went into the worst drought recorded in a generation. Cattle were starving on the neighboring properties. The paddocks had turned to dust, and Hugh Wilson, the botanist who was supposedly destroying everyone's future, opened his gate and let the neighboring farmer graze his starving cattle on the parts of Hinawai where grass was still holding on. That neighbor became a lifelong friend. He was, for a while, the only one. In 1991, the Morris White Trust bought 870 hectares of Otenerito Station next door and folded it into the reserve. The workload jumped almost tenfold overnight. Wilson was now managing over 1,000 hectares of some of the steepest, most remote land on the peninsula without owning a car. He cycled the 90-kilometer round trip from Christchurch every 10 days. He lived eventually in a solar-powered cabin on the property. For 9 years, nothing about the argument changed. The gorse looked exactly the same as it had in 1988. The neighbors were still angry. Wilson kept publishing scientific papers no one on the peninsula was reading. And then, in 1997, the pattern the farmers had said was impossible began to appear. The gorse on the oldest paddock started to fall over, not everywhere, but in patches, where Kanuka and Maho had come up first. The canopy began to open, and native seedlings pushed through into the light. The farmer next door, the same one who had let his cattle graze during the drought, said in a later interview that he had initially thought the succession from gorse to native trees would take 50 years, or that it would never happen at all. But within 10 years, he could see them coming through in places he had not known any native growth existed. By 2016, when researchers repeated the photo point surveys Wilson had begun in 1988, the change was unarguable. The gorse-choked paddock in one 1988 photograph was, in the 2016 photograph taken from exactly the same spot, closed native forest, with Kanuka canopy above head height, tree ferns below, and no visible gorse anywhere in the frame. The farmers had not been wrong about the biology of gorse. They had been wrong about the biology of everything around it. As long as sheep and cattle were on the land, gorse would spread, and native seedlings would be eaten as fast as they came up. Remove the grazing animals, every one of them, and the gorse became a temporary structure that built its own replacement and then vanished. Wilson also removed the possums, the goats, and the deer. He kept out the fires. Beyond that, he did almost nothing. He calls it minimal interference management. In practice, it means the reserve's entire restoration budget over 4 decades has gone to fencing, weed control on a handful of genuinely dangerous invasive species, and possum trapping. Not to tree planting, not to spraying, not to earthworks. A recent possum trapping operation across the reserve caught 29 possums in 14 days. Goats have not been seen inside the reserve for over a decade. The results, cataloged and peer-reviewed, are hard to hold in the head. As of 2026, Hinawai Reserve covers 1,700 hectares. Roughly 4% of that is old-growth native forest, 6 times the average for the rest of Banks Peninsula, which sits at 0.7%. Around 350 native plant species have been documented on the reserve. 35 native bird species have been recorded, including tui, bellbird, brown creeper, rifleman, kareru, and the New Zealand falcon, which naturally recolonized the area. 60 species of fern grow there, 6 of them tree ferns. 47 waterfalls flow year-round, up from a handful before the forest returned, and the hills stopped bleeding water in summer. The reserve now earns roughly 1 million New Zealand dollars a year in carbon credits under the emissions trading scheme, plus donations and walking track revenue without a single planted tree. Wilson's own 1994 paper predicted that by 2050, 95% of Hinawai would be native forest, 4% would be old growth, and only 1% would still be scrub or tussock on the exposed bluffs. The prediction was made when the gorse was still standing 3 meters tall across half the property. Every peer-reviewed survey since has tracked closer to that prediction than any restoration project on the peninsula that used the conventional method of spraying, clearing, and planting. The neighbors know now. The farmer who let his cattle graze on Hinawai during the 1988 drought watched his son begin recording tomteats in his own valley, a bird his family had not seen there in decades. The birds had spread outward from the center of Hinawai, valley by valley, as the forest thickened. Marie Haley, whose family has farmed the next property for 7 generations, now runs guided tours through the reserve. Hugh Wilson is 81 years old. He still lives in the cabin. He still writes and illustrates the reserve's newsletter by hand on paper and mails it to 2,000 supporters. He has never planted a tree. There is a photograph in Hugh Wilson's 2017 paper, taken from a fixed monitoring point above the Otanerito Valley in October 1988. It shows a hillside of pale grass and dense yellow gorse falling toward the sea. Beside it, from the same point in October 2016, is a hillside of closed dark green forest, tree ferns, Kanuka canopy. No visible gorse anywhere in the frame. The 2 photographs are 28 years apart. Nothing was planted between them. Nobody sprayed anything. The only thing anyone did on that particular hillside was refuse to touch it. If a story like this changed how you think about what land can do when it's left alone, subscribe. One of these goes up every week. Like the video if it was worth your time.